Asian hate is a national phenomenon, and it is intolerable, sometimes expressed without violence, that can also be very destructive and hurtful against the Asian community.
新冠疫情所带来的仇恨亚裔事件，在后疫情下眼见的案例或许缓和许多，因为这类的话题也不再是媒体的宠儿。但眼睛看不见的无声的仇恨，或许已经存在你我身边，有形无形的影响到各个商业领域，甚至是我们的日常生活。另外，一座大城市市中心是整座大城市的缩影，它的好坏兴衰都同时代表着城市各个角落的现况跟发展，存在着唇齿关系。今天的仇恨边缘就要带您来探讨的，就是除了在后疫情下隐藏在各行各业当中的无声仇恨之外，更要带您关注的一座城市的市中心的发展，包括像是安全、仇恨犯罪、无家可归这些问题，对于整座大城市来说，它的每个区域的影响性，就像旧金山市中心的现今的状况不是很好，是否也会连带影响到旧金山中国城的生计跟发展？在今天节目当中，我们为大家邀请到是三藩市的市参事会的主席佩斯金来到我们节目当中，一块来欢迎他。各位观众朋友，晚安，欢迎收看今天的仇恨边缘。在今天节目当中，我们为大家邀请到是三藩市市参事会的主席佩斯金来到我们节目当中，我们一块来欢迎他。Hi, Peskin. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. First, congratulations again. You became the president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in January, right? So, how's it been going?
Well, this is a very interesting time in San Francisco. As everybody knows, have just come out of a crushing 3-year pandemic that nobody who is alive today anywhere in the world has ever experienced. And it's come with both psychological impacts and it's come with economic impacts. And so this is a difficult time everywhere. So it's a very important time, and given my past two experiences as president of the board, I bring some of that experience. I've presided over other economic downturns in San Francisco back in the Great Recession of 2008. And my job is to bring everybody together, the 11 members of the board together, to bring the board and the mayor together. This is not a time for political infighting. This is a time for us to come together and meet our challenges head on, and that's what I'm trying to do.
So far, do you have any special project or campaign you can share with us?
Sure, there's no shortage of things. Right now we are in the middle of putting our budget together. The mayor has proposed a budget. I appointed Supervisor Connie Chan to be the budget chair, and she's working through a very difficult budget. Let me just tell you the numbers. San Francisco has an approximately $14 billion budget. Over the next 2 years, we need to reduce that by $780 million, $780 million. That's a significant amount, and I'm very proud of Supervisor Chan and the work that she's doing as we're trying to balance competing needs. Money for early childhood education so that parents can actually have childcare while they go to work. Public health. Our police department, which is short several hundred police officers, making sure that we can recruit new officers. And to do that, we've had to give them pay raises. So that part of the budget is going up. And so that is that's my number one priority. But in addition to that, let's talk about the real vexing problems that San Francisco is facing. And it's not only a tragedy for the individuals that are involved, it impacts all of us. It impacts us whether we live in Chinatown or the Sunset, the issues of homelessness, the issues of drug use, and I'm trying to bring the board and the mayor together to attack those head on as well.
So you have been a part of the Board of Supervisors many years. And can you walk us through your journey and any memorable moment that stand out for you?
Well, I was first elected in the year 2000, and I served 2 4-year terms and left at the end of 2008, and then went back to the life that I lived before, working in the community, and actually never expected to run again. But an interesting thing happened, and it's actually all set out in a movie that everybody should see called Rally. Rose Pack and others convinced me to run again, and so I ran and got back on the board after 7 years of having been gone, which gave me all sorts of other experiences and perspectives, and have been back on since 2015. So I'm now actually in my 5th non-consecutive term. There have been many, many memorable things along the way. I have to say that my association with Chinatown has been one of the real pleasures of this job. I live just a few blocks away. It's a community that has really embraced me and educated me, and there are any number of stories. One of the most memorable is during the pandemic when there was no tourism in Chinatown, when people couldn't even get on a bus to go from other neighborhoods to shop in Chinatown. Was when we started the Feed and Fuel program. And I was able to convince my colleagues, it was easier then because I had more Asian American colleagues on the board. Now we only have 1. In those days we had 4, to fund a Feed and Fuel program that kept the restaurants in business while feeding elderly and low-income individuals in the community that needed food during the darkest days of the pandemic. And the thing that one of the most memorable experiences is the Far East restaurant, which is the last really big remaining banquet hall in Chinatown, was thinking about closing permanently. And they've been in business for almost 100 years. And we went down there and I begged Bill Lee, Uncle Bill, to stay in business, to stick it out, that help was on the way. The community rallied the Board of Supervisors. We were able to appropriate about $2 million that went to Bill and other restaurants. They kept their people employed, they stayed open, and they kept Chinatown fed. So that's one of the most memorable experiences.
I think Chinatown is a very special community. At the beginning, how did you make people accept you in Chinatown?
I have to say, the Chinatown community has been very gracious and welcoming to me in many, many aspects. Both on the street, people I don't know who say "Nehoma," to institutions that are very developed institutions. I mean, this is a community that was isolated and ignored by the city of San Francisco 150 years ago. And as a result, institutions like the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association and the Chinese Chamber of Commerce evolved. The Chinese hospital that started out as the Tonghua Dispensary, and they have existed for 150 years, and they welcomed me and they educated me, and I in turn helped bring them the resources that they were asking for. And they were never greedy. They understood what their needs were. They were able to articulate them. When Chinatown, for instance, wanted, this is in the days when the state of California legalized cannabis consumption. And at that time, it was legal everywhere. And the people from Chinatown, all of the institutions, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, the Chinatown Community Development Center, the merchants organizations came to me and they wanted me to change the law to ban cannabis anywhere in Chinatown.
Wow.
And that was controversial. There were many people in other parts of San Francisco and on the Board of Supervisors. Again, in those days, I had 4 members who were Asian American, primarily Chinese American, and it was easier to do, but we were able to respond, and to this day, cannabis is prohibited in Chinatown.
Thank you for sharing. I think the next segment we can talk about the current situation of Chinatown and the downtown. It's a lot of topic we can talk about. Let's take a break
That's a fascinating thing.
Let's
Yes.
take a break here. 那稍微休息一下之后呢，待会我们就来关注 Chinatown 跟 downtown 的一些消息。 唐人街在大流行病和反亚裔仇恨方面经历了一段艰难的时期。那现在我们看到了暴力事件减少了，但仍然存在所谓的沉默的仇恨，这会伤害到唐人街的商家生意吗？另外，在旧金山市中心有许多的问题，目前的现状会对唐人街产生哪些影响呢？接下来我们继续请到是今天的特别来宾，三藩市市参事会的主席佩斯金，一块来聊这个话题。Thank you for joining us again.
Really a pleasure.
So, now what do you think about Chinatown and the rest of the city safety and the change for during these 30 years?
So, the history of Chinatown, as I said, is a very old one. It's actually one of the earliest neighborhoods in San Francisco. Remember, after the 1906 earthquake, the city leaders in those days did not want Chinatown to be rebuilt. They wanted to move Chinatown to the Bayview. It was a very racist time in San Francisco and America, but the Chinese community came together and they kept Chinatown where Chinatown was. In many ways, Chinatown, unlike other neighborhoods, has changed less. Those institutions that we talked about earlier have done incredible work against all odds to preserve Chinatown, to make it actually what I think arguably is the greatest Chinatown outside of China. And Chinatown has done a remarkable job that we can all learn lessons from in taking care of itself, of being in charge of their own destiny. I am amazed that during the pandemic, Chinatown came together to create a whole new arts and culture facility. Other neighborhoods were not doing that. And yes, the government helped, but they had an idea, they had a plan, and yes, they had the president of the board of supervisors.
Talk about Chinatown. As we know, Chinatown had a lot of a hard time, a rough time with the pandemic and the anti-Asian hate. Do you think this issue will hurt the Chinatown's business?
Very specific to Chinatown, and it's not new. It existed before the pandemic, and we didn't talk about it as much before the pandemic, is Asian hate, is racism expressed in violence, sometimes expressed without violence, that can also be very destructive and hurtful against the Asian community. Not only in San Francisco, Asian hate is a national phenomenon, and it is intolerable. And we also have to, yes, there's the policing side of that, very, very important. I was very proud several years ago to team up to get new security cameras along Stockton Street where many people come and shop. But it's also having the services there when things do happen. The role that CYC has played in giving comfort and counseling to victims of crime has been very important. And the role that the community has played in amplifying whenever there is Asian hate, whenever there is crime, has been very important because it reminds not only members of the Board of Supervisors, but our entire community that this is unacceptable. So the fact that there is now nonprofits and community-based organizations that are thinking about this, that the city has put funding into justice and into addressing not only stopping the crime, but giving services to victims of the crime has been very, very important. And I'm pleased that we are now hearing less incidents. And part of that, I think, also has to do with the city is starting to return to normal.
About the San Francisco downtown, unfortunately, we got a lot of news from any kind of media. The downtown is getting worse and worse. Everybody leaving right now. So in this situation, will affect Chinatown?
So the glass is half empty, but the glass is half full.
Okay.
And while it is true that many downtown office buildings, because of the changed nature of work, now there are many people who had office jobs that they can do at home. And let me just say this, which is Chinatown's economy has never been reliant on downtown San Francisco's economy.
Oh, okay.
And that's very, very important. The two geese that laid the golden eggs for Chinatown. And remember that Chinatown is a place, but it is also a regional concept. People come to Chinatown either because they are tourists and they want to experience Chinatown and spend their money, or they come to Chinatown because maybe they live in the Excelsior, or maybe they live on the peninsula or in the East Bay, and they come back to the historic center of the Chinese community in the Bay Area to shop, to have dim sum, to see their friends, to play mahjong. And they do that, and that is part of the economy. Chinatown's economy has never been reliant on the downtown office economy. I think as we see more national and international travel, the tourism economy of Chinatown is coming back and will get strong again. So while I worry about downtown's economy, I'm not worried that it has an impact on Chinatown's economy.
Wow. You know what? You just changed my concept. I think the Chinatown and the downtown San Francisco is related together. They bond together. Yeah. Let's take a break from here. Okay. 是不是颠覆你既有的一些印象呢？那我们稍微休息一下之后，还有更多的话题带给大家。虽然不至于用全城皆兵来形容，但我们如何尽可能不增加预算的情况之下，保持城市的安全，降低仇恨犯罪的比例呢？那如何才能让更多的人愿意参与城市安全的维护和反仇恨的工作呢？在今天节目当中，我们非常高兴为大家邀请到是三藩市市参事会的主席佩斯金，再次欢迎他。Hello, Peskin.Thank you. Wow, I really learned a lot from your conversation. Yeah, so thank you a lot. So let's talk about the issue about San Francisco. I know that San Francisco right now is trying to fix many issues and problems like drugs, homeless, and the business impact. Do you think we are still in the right track?
Listen, I worry about San Francisco. I would like to believe that our best days are ahead of us. But I think that we have been in denial for too long. When life returned back to normal and the pandemic was over, I think we had an unrealistic view that everything was going to rebound and everything was going to be the same, and it's not. And I've been disappointed that we have not come together, that things have been divisive, that things have not been coordinated. I've recently called very publicly for the mayor to bring together a joint operations center to deal with what we are seeing only 2 blocks from City Hall. Drug-filled people out on the street, people dying of drug overdoses. 79 people died of drug overdoses last month. We have lost more people to drug overdoses than we've lost to COVID by almost 200%. It is unacceptable. And I don't think that we have brought our resources together. I called for that. The mayor was reluctant at first, but ultimately listened to me. Yesterday, I actually spent an hour and a half at the Joint Operations Center, where we've brought in the California Highway Patrol, Adult Protective Services, federal agencies, our police department, our Department of Public Health. We should have done that a long time ago. I am hopeful and optimistic that we will stick to this plan and that it will show progress, but we need leadership.
So I heard about the Mayor Breed mention a lot of plan activity in Chinatown. So can you make an example? What kind of plan?
Sure. So first of all, let me just say I am delighted that the Central Subway is finally open.
Yeah, finally open.
And that the Chinatown Rose Pack Station is open. And there's, by the way, and Chinatown has very little open space. There is open space on top of that. We've actually been having community events at that open space. And we remain focused, and I will answer your question, but we remain focused on things that still need to be done for Chinatown. We have worked with the community and are getting very close to rehabilitating Portsmouth Square, which is Chinatown's living room, to giving the Chinatown Library an upgrade that it has long deserved and needed, to refurbishing the Chinatown Health Center that has been seismically challenged and needs some work. What the mayor and I announced a few weeks ago is actually not new money. It is money from previous years that has still been sitting around to activate and have events in Chinatown. We know that not only the Chinatown community and the larger Chinese American community, but people from all over the city, all over the region, and all over the country see Chinatown and love it for the Chinese New Year parade, for the Moon Festival, and any number of events that we need to activate the streets of Chinatown. CYC has been doing an incredible job with Halloween celebrations, and so we're going to continue to do those, and that's what the mayor and I announced a few weeks ago at the Rose Park station.
But you mentioned about everybody should do this together. So do you have any advice to our audience? How can we do or fix all these problem issues together?
Absolutely. Be a part of your community. Take care of your neighbors. Get involved with the organizations in your community, whether it's the Chinese Six companies, whether it's CYC, whether it is a fraternal organization. That is how we make ourselves stronger. And it is very important to vote. And I wanted to say in closing that I really appreciated being on a board of supervisors that reflected the diversity of San Francisco. This is a city that is a third Asian, predominantly Chinese, and used to have a board of supervisors that was about a third Asian, predominantly Chinese. Now there is only one Chinese supervisor. I think it is very important that next year we elect more Asian Americans to the board of supervisors. And I hope that Supervisor Chan from the Richmond district is reelected. I am hopeful that a Chinese American will run to replace me. I am at the end of my term and I cannot run again. And so I encourage everybody to get involved in voting and hopefully in supporting more Chinese Americans on the Board of Supervisors and in other elected positions.
You know, we really appreciate you coming to join us today. And we know you are very, very busy. So hope we can have another opportunity to speak with you again.
I would love it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
市中心的安全影响到全城每一个角落的发展，停止仇恨亚裔 Stop Asian Hate 这个口号在后疫情下更不能只限于口号。与此同时呢 ，Silent Hate 也悄悄出现在我们生活当中，只有让更多的人愿意参与城市安全的维护和反仇恨的工作，才能让疫情3年下来的创伤慢慢痊愈。而这一季仇恨边缘将会呈现无声的仇恨存在在各行各业不同社会角落，带您来关注了解不同的社会层面的角度，看看后疫情下的现状，探讨那些可能存在我们生活当中的无声的仇恨。感谢您收看今晚的节目，我是海翔，我们下回节目再见。